Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Was in the beginning, is now, ever shall be, world without amen. Hope. That's called the Lord's Prayer. And at this moment, and pretty much since the beginning of time, that's what it's about. A personal relationship with Elohim. The I am a work in progress. Our Father. That's something that's missing in most of our man-oriented civilizations. Is we do not have a real father. We may have a king, a president, politicians, a dog catcher, but they're all corrupt. They're all seeking power for themselves. So we do not have a mentor, someone who's leading us. Now, within our culture, there are individuals who are act that way within the construct. In Athens, there was a character known Socrates, whose best known student was Plato. And Socrates spoke of righteousness, justness of the individual, meaning you can't expect the state to give you any kind of respect unless you have respect for yourself. You know? And what we're seeing going on, let's just take the United States and our politique. There is no respect. You look at Joe Biden and think he respects himself? No, he has had a career of 60 years of corruption, right? You look at Carrot Head, do you think he has any respect for himself? No. What did he say? I could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and not lose a vote, right? Meaning, how could you even say that if you had respect for yourself? No. So you name any individual. Now, there are characters like Robert F. Kennedy Jr., right? And so it'll be interesting to see what he does. And the Democrats, I mean, a good example is Bernie Sanders, right? So he was trying to have some level of sincerity when he ran for president against Hillary Clinton, right? And he was filling football stadiums with cheering crowds when Hillary couldn't even fill a high school gymnasium, right? So, but she wins. How did she do that? It was rigged. And so, if I come from the George Carlin school of politics, right? Go watch some of his HBO specials, right? The last 30 years of his life, he really, you know, told it like it was, and yet, he was relatively successful within the dynamic. And here we are at 4 minutes and 4 seconds, and I want to say, hey, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to Dreamland with Sensei Bob. And if you're enjoying this show, and as most of you do later on in your day, not too many that come on live. Yesterday's show was very nice. We had two folks that were a little bit chatty. That was nice. And we made some phone calls and had guests. So if you really enjoy this, it would be nice to throw something in PayPal, right? And that's dudawake42 at Gmail, dudawake42 at Gmail. Now, I really haven't received anything since Thanksgiving. Right now, a friend of mine did throw something in there a few weeks ago. I said, hey, just throw some money in there just to see if the thing works. And it does. So it works. It's all hooked up. It would be nice, right? But I'm not doing this the chump change you guys send me. No. Yeah, I'm doing this to serve love's co-creation. That's what this is about, right? So, let's go to our most fun foil. Do, 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 do. There he is. Ah. Do, 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 do. We're calling up the canary in the coal mine. See what he has to say. So he's about to sell the school to a, who knows? My little Spidey. I'm not even there. I haven't met the guy, but my little Spidey sense. It sounds like a real scam. So Johnny ain't picking up. Come on, Johnny, pick up. Pick up, Johnny. Johnny. Pick up.
Please leave your message for.
Anyway, so.
The 2020s are the decade when it all breaks apart.
Sure. So the demographic story is pretty straightforward. When the world started to globalize, we started to industrialize and urbanize. So as we moved from the farm and into the city, we changed our attitude towards children. And on the farm, kids are free labor. You have as many as you can put up with, plus one, because that's how you find out it's too many. But when you're in the city, they're an expense. So we went from having 7 kids to less than 2, pretty much everywhere. And this process in many countries began in the 40s. In the case of the Germans, it started before that. In the case of, say, the advanced developing world, Mexico, Brazil, and such, it started in the 90s. But we've all been on this same path. And the countries that started the process later have urbanized faster and so seen their birth rates drop faster, with China being at the top of that list. The 2020s were always going to be the decade where most of the world's major economies flipped not from having too many children to too many adults, but from too many adults to too many retirees. So in an environment where you have a lot of young people, your consumption-led economic growth, a lot of labor, you can get a lot of more organic growth that way. When you have a lot of people in their 40s and 50s, they're wealthier, they're more productive, but they don't have kids anymore. So you get a little high-octane growth because it can be more technologically based. But once they get into their 60s, it's over. And so we're going to see it basically ending in places like Germany and Italy and Belgium and Japan and Korea and China this decade. And we don't have an economic model for what comes next.
However, there is one country I could think of that is well positioned in terms of demographics, and that is India. Will India rise geopolitically? It has already taken over China in terms of demographics?
Well, let's start with the data there. India overtook China probably almost a decade ago. The Chinese have started to revise their data. They're admitting that they overcounted by over 100 million people. So India has been the world's largest country in terms of population for some time. However, that transition as you urbanize and have fewer children, that has hit India as well. And since India was kind of a latecomer, not starting its industrial process until the 80s, it happened there much more quickly than it did, say, in Europe. So I don't mean to suggest that India is facing a dark future. Not what I'm saying. But their demographic moment is now, not in the past. They have basically the pyramid starts with older people, comes down to people in their 50s and then their 40s. And when you hit the 30s in India, it then goes almost straight down. The birth rate halved back in the 90s, and it has not bounced back. Now, that means at this moment in time, India does kind of have the magic mix. Because if you've got a lot of young adults who are 20 to 40, but not a huge number of kids, the money that they would have spent on their kids, they spend on themselves. And you get a lot higher quality of growth, because when you're building homes and buying cars, that's going to just generate more follow-on growth when you're buying diapers and taking care of childcare. So there's this 20-year period that the Indians have in front of them where they're going to have much more robust growth. But if their birth rate continues to drop, then 30 years from now, they're going to be looking at a situation like the Germans are facing today. Now, there's a lot that can go wrong and right in 30 years, but it is something to keep in mind. The youngest country in India's cohort is Mexico. They started the process a little bit later. The birth rate didn't drop quite as much, and the fact that they're partnered with the United States really helps. And when you want to talk about shining India, the idea that India is a major global power, you got to remember this. India has no partners at all. So Mexico can partner with the United States. Indonesia can partner with Vietnam and Singapore and Taiwan and Japan. India is on its own. Just the cultural norms of the country make it very difficult for it to see anyone else as an ally or even as a friend. And so any sort of manufacturing boom in India, which will happen, will have to be based entirely on Indian factors. And that's going to challenge the cost and the quality and everything else that goes along with that. So do I think India's got a great half century ahead of it? Yes, but by itself, not as part of a network that can help it.
India is going to bet on India, so to say. But let's focus on probably two stories that are most striking. And these are the stories of China and the story of Europe. Maybe let's begin first with China, because you don't have a lot of good news considering China's geopolitical positioning in this transitionary period of the international relations.
I think the biggest surprise that's going to be happening to most this decade is the collapse of China as a functional nation state. Their demographics are beyond terminal, and that was before they admitted that they miscounted by 100 million, and all the 100 million would have been people under age 40. So there's no point that they can support their existing population. There's no way that they can repopulate anymore. Their financial system has expanded by a factor of 34 since the year 2000, but their economy is barely quadrupled. So that's the biggest debt bill we have seen in any country in human history. And now their payback for the new debt is minimal. So we've seen growth basically collapse from the 9 and 10% to like the 1 to 3%. And that's assuming you buy Chinese statistics, which I do not. They are completely dependent on the import of raw materials to support their agricultural and their energy system. And with the Ukraine war, they are now getting crude that is going west out of Russia to the Baltic, goes around Europe, goes through Suez, goes by India, goes by Vietnam, goes by Taiwan on the way in. So it's the most insecure energy supply line ever. And they're completely dependent upon the U.S. Navy to protect their global shipping. And their war plan for Taiwan, I love this. Their war plan for Taiwan is so dumb. Like, we're going to sink all American ships within range and take the island, but the U.S. Navy everywhere else in the world is going to continue to protect our corporate shipping. That is literally their plan. That is like the second dumbest thing I've heard in the last 20 years. The dumbest thing also involves China. We can talk about the spy balloon if you want to later.
So, that's just one guy and one opinion, but it's basically we are living in this period where everything is falling apart. Now, it's called entropy, right? And since leaving the Garden of Paradise, which had no entropy, we were all vegan, and everyone got along, kumbaya. No one died, got sick, reproduced. Now we have entropy, right? But we also have this illusion of time. And so entropy, it takes a blink of an eye, but it also takes eons, right? So, physics is more physics looks at stuff. Science, we have to go to the science. Give me a break. Science is the most prejudiced motif as it is, because science is supposed to be based on skepticism. More of these morons are, like the thing we've just experienced the last 5 years with Carrot Head shows that no one believes in science. No one believes in anything, right? It's all about me. It's all about me. No, it's not about me. It's about the we in me, right, at the most base level. And that we includes our Father, Son, Holy Ghost, right? And no matter what name you call them, I mean, you go all the way back to Samaria. And, Moses basically took all of, the making of the world, and in the beginning, from the Sumerians, right? So let's go take a look at that one. Problem is, you got to put on the glasses. These are groovy glasses. They just kind of slide on your head. Origin story. Okay, here we go.
Have you been to Antarctica? Yes, it's rather tiring. The person that came with two other people refer to it as the black hole.
As someone who was a Bible fundamentalist, I understand the profound before we.
We just want the first 2 minutes of this.
Did Genesis chapters 1 through 3 borrow elements from much earlier Mesopotamian mythological stories? Brace yourself as we explore the linguistic, lexical, and thematic connections between these ancient myths, such as the Enuma Elish and the Genesis narrative. But let's not overlook the implications of such borrowing. Shouldn't this compel open-minded individuals to question the literal truth of these stories? Before we proceed, let's address some crucial points. The Hebrew language, as recorded in the earliest texts, dates back perhaps to the 10th century BCE, while the Mesopotamian myths, etched onto clay tablets, are often over 1,000 years older. Contrary to mistaken assumptions, the Hebrew Bible's creation and flood story contains Akkadian cognates from that much earlier language, not the other way around. It is essential to clarify this misconception and correct any misguided notions that suggest the other myths drew inspiration from the Bible. This factual inaccuracy needs to be rectified before we continue. Those who attempt to use Mesopotamian myths as evidence supporting the historical truth of the biblical narrative are quite frankly missing the boat, or rather, missing Noah's Ark altogether.
That's right.
Can we genuinely believe that Utnapishtim and his wife are walking among us, bestowed with immortality by the gods? Do we truly entertain the notion that Enlil annihilated humanity simply for being too noisy?
Too noisy. Oh, I
Or that
can't stand
Marduk
those cockroaches.
fashioned the cosmos from the remains of the sea goddess Tiamat? It's a resounding no to both, of course. As someone who was a Bible fundamentalist, I understand the
Yep, Bible fundamentalist. Yeah. Ugh. What's interesting is that when you are a Bible fundamentalist and you look at Genesis, between and in the beginning and Noah, there is a real question on what was going on the planet, and there is a gap. And if you were to say, go to Google and say, Google, tell me what the gap between just after, in Genesis, in the Moses story, what gap is there between the very beginning and then, soon after, right? Always love, right? So love was always there. That's the real thing, gang. Is that love takes no time. There is no time. The Bible is all about time, right? Oh, it took 6 days to blah blah blah. Oh, it's interesting. If you're a string theory theorist and you use the satellites that are now measuring the mass in the universe, and you use Einstein's equations, you realize, with time-space bending, that it actually did take 6. If you do all the math and show your work, you just can't just give me the answer. You got to show your work. Anyway, you need a supercomputer for that one. But they take all the data that they have, they crunch the numbers, and they realize that the zillion years that we've experienced so far, when you put in, time space there, it is 6 days. Ooh, who thought of that? I mean, there are all these really interesting little things, but only guys like me, your itinerant scholar, your griot, really takes a look at, right? And I'm sitting on some guy's porch talking to you, right? I had to drive a mile in the rain, right? And we got no gas in the bottle there, and but I wanted to talk to you guys about prayer and about love because that's all there is, and forgiveness, and so the Trinity. A lot of people have a hard time with Father, Son, Holy Ghost, Trinity. There's Janie. Um, Yep. So anyway, within the construct of all of this, um, we have to basically. There's only one master, and that's love's co-creation. And what you read the Old Testament specifically, you know, Tiaman or God or whatever you want to call him, I call him it, you know, and I call it love's co-creation. And it has told us that it is a work in progress, and we, the we and me, the we are a reflection of it, and we give it the ability to see what it's doing. Otherwise, it has no context. Right? But we in it is context. Hello, yep. Used to huff the smoke from children's burned belly fat. Yep. Fascinating. Yep. So the insanity of religion is just that. It's just one man's opinion that he calls a belief. I believe in it. So what? So you believe in it. I don't care. You can believe in whatever you care about or whatever you think you care about. But that doesn't make it so. Fine, go do it. But as long as you don't hurt anybody, I'm happy with it, right? But when you start doing like our friend here gives us insight, burning the belly fat, off of babies, and that was, when you read the Old Testament, and they're always going on about the blood and the sacrifice, and who's the guy who went up the steps about to slit his son's throat, and so that's what we have to look at. Is that really a God? It is a God because God, you take it down to Mesopotamian and you're looking at Magog, which is Magog, which is God, which is the love of gold. Just go look in the Vatican. How many paupers are in the Vatican? Not too many. Go to St. Patrick's. Cliff High reading Orlinda, alternative history. Yep. The Orlinda. Yep. It's the alternative oral history, right? So, and that's what I am. I'm a griot. I tell you stories, right? Burnt offerings, the Holocaust. Yep. Exactement. So pretty much everything is you burnt offerings, Holocaust. Pretty much, when we nuked Hiroshima and Nagasaki, we were doing a ceremony. When we nuked all the innocent cities in Europe, like Dresden, right? That Billy Pilgrim was amongst, um, that was a burnt offering, right? He had to clean up all those charred bodies. And I've seen charred bodies. They ain't pretty sight. It's like cordwood, It's made from the same thing, You are just like a tree. You're just made out of carbon. Lord, just, you're a bag of water with some trace elements. The majority of the trace elements are carbon. And, there's a little copper in there, and that is, the hemoglobin, the iron in your hemoglobin, right? The thing keeping it together is the copper, right? So we're just an ever-ready battery, in the film and the books Matrix, when Neo or EO or the one wakes up in a bathtub, he realizes he's ever-ready bunny. Yep. So all of the indigenous people I live with, I live with a tribe in Australia, the Wallamajiri, right? And they actually had a written history. But all the quote unquote experts on these people, oh, they're like children, they're innocent, they won't let you take their pictures, blah, blah, blah. Polaroid. I went to visit these folk in the Northern Territories in Christmas Creek, right just below Ayers Rock, to the, I guess that's the west of Ayers Rock. Polaroid just came out with the SX70, and I had been working for Polaroid in the United States. I knew Grandpa Polaroid. I knew Grandpa Xerox too, and I was there. They found a nice little niche for me and called me the itinerant scholar visiting artist, right? And I did that shtick for at least 30 years at universities. Now, today, nobody wants to touch that with a 10-foot pole, because what I'm doing here right now is what I used to do in universities. I used to lecture, not teach a class, I would be doing research, and I'd say, "Oh, we need a guy to teach intro statistics. Can you do that?" Sure. Give me $100 a class, and give me an office. I'm your guy, right? And I put on the syllabus. I guarantee you an A. Just show up. And underneath in smaller print, no tests, no quizzes, no papers, no textbook. And underneath that, in real small print, if you ask me, is this going to be on the quiz, you immediately fail. If you do it the first, and it's going on your record. And even if you do it the first day in class before drop ed, which meant before drop ed, pretty much nothing counted. But that counted for me. I was going to give you an F, period. If you're going to be that dumb, right? And I would pretty much reiterate it every single class. Okay, kids, remember, if you ask me if this is going to be on a quiz, you fail the course completely and goes on your Swami Bakken. Notice you're a very good listener. Ow. Anyway, here's our friend Yo-Yo. And he is a friend, he's our comic relief. I mean, I can't always be the stand-up comedian, so that's why we have Swami here, right? So good to see you, Swami, and Jane and Jamie, right? We got the three. So how about one of you, the one who hasn't given the thumbs up yet? Throw that in there. Come on. And come on, guys. Here's another, what do you call it? What do they call those things? Public address. Hey, good morning, good evening, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. And if you want to put anything in the old PayPal, that's the dudewake42 at Gmail, dudewake42 at Gmail. You want to get a hold of me where we can have mano y mano, dudewake42 at Gmail. So right now, what's keeping this world from flying apart? And it's pretty obvious there are powers that be that want to have a civil war in the United States, want to have a civil war around the world. Every country is like tearing itself apart. France, Italy, you name it. Sweden, who would think? Who would have thought? Sweden, England, they're all tearing themselves apart, right? Look at poor Haiti, Haiti has always got the wrong end of the stick after they were the first folks, they were the most profitable slave state in the Caribbean / Americas for 100 years, right? And the Spanish got a lot of cash out of that. It built their navies that allowed them to go all over Central and South America and California and dig up all the gold. And then because, when, Christopher Columbus went looking for the East, he ran into Haiti, right? Hispaniola. And those folks, 6 million indigenous people lived on that island. And it was garden paradise, right? And they were tall and handsome and generous and sweet and really smart. And they went out and grabbed those guys because they were just like floating off, like, the indigenous folk could see their boat, their high mast. So they went up there in their canoes, grabbed the white folk, dragged them in, and healed them. And when grabbed them and healed them. And why Chris he was no sailor. He didn't know squat. His crew came out of a jail. He got the three crappiest boats the Spanish had. It was just a Hail Mary thing. So the Queen, she liked reading what Chris was a good writer. He was a good describer, right? That's why she picked him. And so his real valuable thing was his log. And so the first thing he did, he grabbed his log and he's in bed and he writes, "We've been saved by the indigenous people here, or the folk who live here, however you put it. They're tall, they're handsome, they're strong, they're intelligent, they're generous. They'll make good slaves. I could conquer these people with 10 guys with guns." Right? So he goes away, he comes back with his psychopath son, and not with 10 guys, with 2,000 hardened shock troops, all with guns, cannon, and basically conquered the whole place and enslaved everyone, right? And tore down good chunks of the indigenous lands to grow, sugar for booze, tobacco, cotton, corn, a few other cash crops, right? And between their harsh treatment of these people and their exposure to European untidiness, within 4 or 5 years, all 6 million, or 10, let's say 10 years, 10 years, just as everything was humming along, making lots of money for Spain, the Queen, and the rich folk, the indigenous people died off. Well, Africa was just right over there. So they went over there and they grabbed a bunch of black folk, and that's where we got the black folk, right? And so that went on for another almost 100 years, and America got, sponsored and conquered, and about 70 years before the Civil War, even before that, before maybe 10 years before the Revolutionary War, Haiti, the black slaves who were smart and very had it together. You have to realize everything in the imperialist conquered world of Africa, Central America, and North America. Who built all of that? Who built all of the wealth? Who built everything? Not white men. Black and colored folk, slaves, right? Indentured servants, and women. All people had no rights whatsoever. Women didn't get rights until the 1920s, right? Some would say people of color still don't have rights. When you say Black Lives Matter, and then the white morons go, "Well, all lives matter." Well, this is true, and I'm not a big fan of the Christopher Columbus, that is. Yes. Columbus, the first Jesuit, left Spain the day before Queen Isabel evicted Khazarians, like 1492. Yep. Khazarian mob. Go look those guys up, right? They are the Anunnaki, the Aryan race, the guys who the Nazis were looking for, the 13th tribe. Tartarianism. Yep. So there's big holes in the advertised history, right? And that's why we are about to rebrand everything by having a 1984 Big Brother kind of war, right? Which will, that scene from The Next Generation, the first one, Whoopi at High Point or Bright Point, or when we first meet Q and he shows everyone what Earth's history was like, right? And he was dressed like a French Jesuit, in the Inquisition thing, and had little midgets with machine guns. That's where we're heading, kids. You know, Gene Roddenberry, he had his little magic mirror. He worked for naval intelligence. He knew what was going on. He was trying to foster. That's where we're heading for. We're heading for the Federation. If we really stand back and look at Star Trek and all of what the Federation is, it's a fascist organization. Yeah, you get to wear some pretty cool clothes. You got Replicator. You can eat as many hot dogs as you want, but and people have respect for everyone's culture. There's diversity. Give me a break. It's a fascist organization, right? And that's globalization's not even close to as fascist as as Captain Austin Fitz goes on and on about Mr. Globaloney. Yeah, it's kind of an organic motif. But what we're heading into, kids, so you better start praying, and serving love's co-creation. Because, if you're doing anything other than that, you're just, masturbating, and you're not even getting off. It's like pulling the chain without, having any flush. So, so the buzz out Rio. Yep. Ricardo, haven't seen you in a while. Blessed be. Ricardo's a brother from either Portugal or Brazil, right? That's Portuguese right there, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, so yeah, it's kind of an interesting story. What else does Little Magic Box have for you? Let's see what this guy keeps going on.
As someone who was a Bible fundamentalist, I understand the profound impact of blindly following ill-informed teachings. Today, reading these older texts and understanding their original context has given me a richer understanding of the meaning of these stories. I actually love these stories for what they are, and it is my goal for others to enjoy reading them in their actual historical context, and not as if they dropped out of heaven. However, as we explore the intricate web of connections between these polytheistic Mesopotamian myths and the later monotheistic Hebrew Bible, it becomes evident that the Genesis creation and flood accounts were crafted using popular mythological motifs of the time. This realization raised.
Yep. And most, theologians knew this. When I was going to school as a young theologian in my late teens to my early 30s, that's what everyone was talking about. Joseph Campbell sure was, So we are living in a very interesting time, and we always have, right? I'm old enough to look and see the 1950s were pretty interesting. 1960s, 1970s, 80s, 90s, early O's, not a time when things weren't interesting or critical or crazy or insane or all of the above, right? But when people go back and look at them and geoengineer what history was, just like good old Brave New World and good old 1984 talk about, where Winston was working for the Seminole Institute of Truth for the state, for Big Brother, and it was called Newspeak. It's just what we got right now. I mean, that was, that book was written in 1948. Orwell came from a well-to-do family. He was well-educated. He was an oracle for the rich, just like Marx and Lenin. They were just roustabouts, and the Germans had stuck them in jail, and so Mr. Rothschild, snuck them out of Germany, brought them to the city of London, put them in a nice house, and had them write Das Kapital. All of communism and Russian mythology was written in London, in the heart of Rothschild's capitalist economy. And what he was doing was he was creating what is known as the value added loyal opposition, right? If you're moving forward with a plan, economic, social, etc. plan, you know there's going to be blowback against it. So if you create the blowback, if you create your opposition and have them be loyal to you, and that's what Russia was. We've never had a war with, I mean, look, there's a war right now that is, is for Russians to lose. There is no way that Russia can't win this war. But, it was supposed to be a special little opposition that was going to take 3 days, and they're still doing it. And, Ukraine is eating their lunch with 1/10 of the population and 1/10 of the resources, right? So it looks like Vlad is reading the script. He is a loyal opposition. When I say things like that, there's no one out there in all of media land who is saying that this war is a soap opera, and virtually every war is, to ingratiate the world population, which was what's coming next. And what is coming next is going to be an oops nuclear war. Basically, right now, there's Vlad is bombing all of the wheat distribution system of Ukraine, and one of those is right on the border of NATO. Right, there's the Danube River is separating, a NATO ally from Ukraine city, and he's been bombing them. And the Russian cruise missiles aren't that great, and not that accurate. I mean, they were going after. I mean, either they mean to kill, 100,000 or so innocent citizens of Ukraine, which I think probably they're doing on purpose, because when Stalin took Ukraine in the 20s or whenever that was, he basically killed 6 million Ukrainians and then put 6 million Russians who he didn't like, but he still kind of needed them. He didn't want to kill them. That would have pissed too many people off. So he said, hey, you want a free house? You want a free farm? You want a free business? You want a free factory? Here, come to Ukraine, right? And so that's been the kind of, and back when there was a czar, similar things happened. So, it's not like far from the script, right? So you look at all of the Holocaust that's going on in Ukraine to the poor, innocent folk who can't get their ass out of town, all those old grandmas and such, they're just killing them off. The Ukraine doesn't want them, because you looked at the mental institutions and the old folks' homes before the war, it was like horrifying. It's like, very close to what we have. When I was in Ithaca, New York, there was this guy who had old folks' home, and he had, a HMO kind of corporate thing of all these old folks' homes. And on the bottom of the barrel, he bought defunct trailer home lots, and he put old folks in those trailers, travel trailers, and he would have somebody in a golf cart come around with McDonald's and throw sandwiches at the people, and they called that, Medicaid gave him like, $300 a day taking care of old people, right? And all they did is sit there, shivering in a travel trailer, kind of like what happened in New Orleans with FEMA, with the hurricane, and people had to live in poisoned FEMA trailers. And they don't have to vaccine people to kill them. The stuff we eat and as water is poison enough to get rid of us. And that's all of these things are building up into a motif where this year and next year, though what's left of the 2020s, total economic collapse, right? total collapse of the geopolitical Mr. Global, right? And basically, there's going to be at least, if not more, than 1 billion people dying in the next 3 years. I'm saying between, right now our population is hovering around 8 billion people. I'm saying between 1 and 5 billion people are going to die, right? And me, I've died 7 times already. The last time was the real kicker. I was ready to go. I was down in that basement with the welcome home, sheet cake and balloons and the smell of vomit. And everyone's patting me on the back on what a great job I've done over my life. And then my master came over and said, "Hey, you're doing a great job." And I said, whoa. Doing? That means, he goes, "That's right. You have to go back." I said, but I'm tired. I'm ready. So, "Well, you can stay here for eternity until all things are worked out. But it's going to be tick tock, tick tock." You think, Shakespeare with what's his name, and tomorrow was bad. You, buddy, are going to be more Hamlet than Hamlet. Or you can go back. You only got 11% to finish up. You've done 89% flagship grade A. You're doing great. So look back at all those photo books you got. You've had a great time. So I'm giving you more great time. So that was 2014. So it took 7 years to lose that 240 pounds, to get my body into this shape. I go visit. I had really good medicine until COVID showed up and destroyed the medical system in my neck of the woods. Right? I had wired it up very nice. Now I'm having to be a stand-up comedian to get halfway decent. That's all they want to do is do open heart surgery and kill me. Right? This is last week I got an email. I don't always look at my email. I have to come up here someplace to look at it. If I don't see something in PayPal, I don't go any further. But anyway, one day, last week I did kind of, look at what, and I saw that, I was signed up to have open heart surgery yesterday, right? So Monday, I went to my provider and said, "Hey, what's this about?" And I go, "Oh, we don't know." And so, but the hospital where it is just down the road. So I went there and I walked through the place. I mean, I've been in that place and scared most of them. So they leave me alone when I walk. And most times, sir, you don't have why are you here? Check in, give us all your money, put it, and you have to have a bracelet to get around, right? So I have one in the car that, I slip off and slip on, right? When the guy put them on, I said, "Oh, it's too tight. Give me another one. Make it as loose as you can," which he did. So, they have it made for all sizes. So they have ones for really big fat people. So he just put it on the thing, so I could just do this. So I could put it on, right? And that's enough so people don't bother to talk. They already know, and there's only one of me. And so I went right up to. I've already had dealings with these morons. So I went in up to their floor. I went into their office, and I said, "So hey, here's me. Here's my name. Here's my date of birth. So what's on the schedule for me?" "Well, tomorrow you're here for open heart surgery. Remember, don't eat. Get here at 7." And I said, "I haven't talked to the cardiologist." "Well, he's very busy right now. He can't talk to me now. But he's ready for you tomorrow." I said, "Does that make sense that I would have them crack my chest, put my life, and they don't even, well, it's very important that you have this procedure because you could die." So, you can nix me from that. "Oh, we can't do that. We've already scheduled. It's going to be so inconvenient for us." I said, "That's nice. I'm not going to be there, unless this guy can come and show me right now why I should put myself through this." And so she so she goes on the computer and says, "Well, he can't have a consult with you until November 1st. I said, "Oh, this is really important. I'm going to die. It's an emergency that I have to have this operation tomorrow, but I can't talk to the guy until November." Really? I just turned around, and walked out. I went downstairs to the and see. One reason I go in there, they have an amazing cafeteria, and everyone in there loves me who works there. And I hold court and read everyone's palms, and I have my cards, and all the guys who are shrinks come and talk to me, and want my advice about their life. Anyway, you know, and I said, so why don't you just take the same drugs that you give those people? Well, we do, and we're addicted to everything, and life still sucks. Oh, okay. So, I went down to have lunch. I mean, breakfast is $3, all you can eat. Lunch, what they call supper, sometime, something between lunch and dinner, supper. And so I went in there and I had meatloaf, mashed potatoes, string beans, cornbread, and angel food hair cake. And that was $3. And then I had real turkey. And what I do is I eat a little bit of it and then put it into go box, and then I grab another meal. So for about $9, I get a whole week's worth of nicely cooked food. I do that maybe once a month. But anyway, that's what's going on in the world, guys. I am just a microcosm. I'm here to report, here to tell you stories, right? Here to give you insights. One of the boys, unfortunately. Yep. Putney, one of the boys. Yep. He's, just all the people you see in the media cracked up as world leaders, like micro penis Billy Boy, soulless, faceless, heartless, public, YouTube, not YouTube, no, the other one, the Face magazine, right? Whatever that is, the Face thing. That guy said, poster boy, Elon Shuck, that guy is worse than a used car salesman. He is dumber than a box of rocks. Someone would ask him, so why did you name your car company Tesla? And he goes, oh, I was told to. No, he basically stole that business from two guys who started it. He went there with just chump change and said, I want, he just kept, what he's really good at saying same thing over and over and over. He has the same debilitation that Carrot has. He just repeats the same thing. He shows no empathy, shows no real sense of human. He has this little child moron. He's like the character Pinocchio when they went to the carnival and everyone was ass, with the ears and the hee-haw, hee-haw. That's Elon. And so then you look at Mr. Gravy Train. You got to buy everything from me. All these guys didn't start anything, didn't invent anything. They are just poster childs. Mr. Appleboy, they all have this same thing. We came from, the kids from Google, and, part of their mission statement was to do no harm. They're doing everything they can to harm you. And they all came from well-connected families. And they all came from entities that were some way Hail Hydra, right? And were in the intelligence business. So that's where all of this is. We are getting, forget about having a credit rating. We're going into what China has as a social rating, right? And the CDBC, centralized digital banking currency, is going to be your face. You're going to walk into a store, and if you're not part of the club, you won't even be able to walk in the store, right? And you go there, and you go over to the thing, and we'll give you a bag, right? And then you will go through the store and put things in the bag, and then you walk out because of your face is record. This is the money. You have stuff in the account. Bingo. You get to walk out with useless pieces of crap and go home, right? And you will live in a 15-minute town, meaning you will only be able to buy things within an area that you can walk to within 15 minutes. You'll have 3 or 4 different stores that you can go to. You can have 3 or 4 different, amusement outlets that you can go to. You can go to 3 or 4 medical things that you can go to, and that's it, right? And you will do whatever is considered work from home, right? And you'll still have to wear a suit, right? You won't be able to just do it in your fluffy bunny shoes and your pajamas. So it's this is a world that is going to be what you're going to live in 15 years from now, right? And so I'm living way out here in the middle of nowhere, and the cockroaches are showing up, and they're trying to push that 15-minute world here. I'll have a dollar store, within 15 minutes of here, and that'll be it, right? Cut all the trees down, and anyway, good luck with that. That's all I got to say, right? So here's up alien invasion. Yeah, yeah, yep. And we are the aliens. That's the real deal. And that book, To Serve Man, is a cookbook. So oh, look at that, 57 minutes and 17 seconds. So I don't know if you've heard the sound of the rain around me. Let's see what time. 12. Okay. So maybe I'll come back. How much juice do I have left? 49%. We'll do one last thing. We'll try and see if the our boy Johnny shows up.
Please leave your message for.
No, went straight. The other one rang about 5 times. That meant John Boy looked at it. This one went straight to the voicemail. So Johnny is about to sell the school to some hoodwink, and that guy's probably going to destroy it beyond belief. And little does he know that the Hill is a energetic point in time and space. And whatever that moron tries to do, and I've never met him, I'm just energetically sensing. Whatever he does will, look at John. You just have to go and watch all the shows he's been there 5 years. So, look what it did to John. Now, it saved his life, and John, in essence, kind of saved the school in that he did a lot of things that structurally needed to be done. Right? He patched the roof. There were a number of things that were about to fall in on the building. He fixed those, and Mr. Mike did that, and Mr. Mike did a bunch of other good things. And then Johnny Boy, decorated the place. I just had it as a warehouse and my school. I ran my mystery school out of there. But no one lived in the school. I had them all because the Hill was so sacred and so powerful. The school was okay, but it was more or less a warehouse. And so, and pretty much everybody who had lived in it before, it was a warehouse of their destruction, warehouse of their life, right? A warehouse of all the things. It could have been like for me, it was I had great parties and great fun and positive things in that place, right? Because I was other places. I was there. I was down in Florida. I was here in Tennessee. I had a couple other place in Lynchburg and another place in West. survive, I would have to have a place that I could scrape back a physical essence of that love creation could use. The billionth airheads. Yep, yep. So, but don't be despondent like the cockroaches. Love's co-creation creates everything for a reason, right? And all of this has a reason for being. So um, that's why instead of judging, we need to step back and have perspective, and then use that perspective. The only person we can judge is ourselves, right? But we need perspective to do that. We can't use a belief structure, right? As that boy said, as a stuck Christian, I haven't been able to judge anything, right? And now that I'm looking at stuff a little deeper, wider, over here, perspective wise. Anyway, so mosquitoes are starting to chew on me. They've zeroed in on me, so I'm gonna see you guys later. Maybe I'll get a hold of you later in the afternoon. Depends on where I go, what happens, etc. See what time is it? Might make it. Okay, catch you later.